Did you know your credit card points and miles can lose value to inflation? Credit card companies often reduce the redemption value of your points and miles. Now imagine a credit card with rewards that can grow in value. With the Gemini credit card, you can earn Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptos instantly with no annual fee. Every swipe at the store or gas pump earns you instant rewards deposited straight to your account. Plus, sign up now for a $200 Bitcoin bonus to kickstart your rewards. Visit Gemini.com/card today. Check out the link in the description for more information on rates and fees. Again, if you're looking to invest in Bitcoin but don't know where to start, the Gemini credit card makes it easy.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
A warm and friendly hello, welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Rob Donaldson. He does such great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets. We're going to be chatting with him about what we've all seen here in the playoffs thus far. We'll take a look at the 2 games for Monday. Are the Yankees dead, or is there perhaps a little bit of life with them? We're going to talk about that and so much more in the final segment. I'm going to get you guys picks and analysis for both games on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one or two ways we fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM. They me does not matter, so as per usual, please send these into the timeline. And the other way is Vine and Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Well, I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today. Everything is powered by EdgeBoost. Over at EdgeBoost, they're making sure that bettors are able to have access to their funds whenever and wherever. With EdgeBoost, 100% of gambling transactions do get approved. And when you go to EdgeBoost.bet, put in that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That gets you a $1 for $1 match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's take a look back at what we all saw in baseball on Sunday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
Oh, this was not what the Yankees were hoping for. They're down 0-2 in the series, and Max Fried, it's spelled like fried, and he certainly got fried. 13-7. The Toronto Blue Jays are able to get the job done in this one. I mean, to the credit of the Yankees, between the 6th and 7th innings, they put 7 runs up on the board, but it was way too little, way too late as Trey Yesevich. Boy, 11 strikeouts and 5 1/3 inning scoreless. From there, the bullpen was very shaky. Justin Brule gives up 2 runs in a third of an inning. Braden Fisher, he gets it out of the bullpen scoreless before Eric Lauer, Tommy Nance. They got to combine 2 outs. They give up 5 runs between the 2 of them. You had Mason Flaherty from there getting out of the bullpen scoreless. Louis Varland, a scoreless inning, and then Serenity Dominguez cleans up the 9th inning. And for the Blue Jays, how about the home run power? Vlad Guerrero Jr., a grand slam off of Will Warren, his second of this series. George Springer goes deep. Dalton Varsho had a pair of bombs off of Will Warren, and Ernie Clement was able to go deep off of Max Fried. From Fried, he gives up 7 runs in 3 innings, and from there, Will Warren, he gives up 4 home runs, 6 runs allowed in 4 2/3 innings. Part of that was inherited runners for Max Fried, as Luke Weaver, he was able to get it out of the bullpen squirrel. So now in the postseason for Weaver, he's got a 135 ERAs. He's got 1 out, and he's given up 5 runs. And for Cody Bellinger, he was able to go deep in this one, his first of the postseason, but way too little, way too late for the Yankees. And then for the Detroit Tigers, their offense came alive a little bit too little, too late, as well as the Seattle Mariners. They do find a way to persevere and get the job done by a count of 3-2. As for Tariq Skubal, he gives up 2 runs in this one over the course of his 7 innings. Both were solo home runs. Ore Polanco able to go deep twice off of him, and Luis Castillo only gives up 1 hit. No runs allowed in 4 2/3 innings, but did walk 4, was pulled quite early, and the Seattle Mariners bullpen, other than Matt Brash, were able to hold up, and Brash was hurt by a Josh Naylor fielding error. He gave up 2 runs, one of which was earned in the 8th inning, but gave Spire 4 outs out of the bullpen squirrels. Edward Bazardo and Andres Munoz both had a squirrels inning themselves, and for the Tigers, it was Kyle Finnegan who yacked it up in the 8th inning. For Finnegan gives up a run in 2/3 of an inning. It was a RBI double by Julio Rodriguez that was able to be the difference maker. Brian Herter, he was able to get it out of the bullpen squirrels, and for the Tigers, they go 1 of 6 with men in scoring position. So you saw both underdogs be able to cash in the ALDS games on Sunday, and that means that we've had 3 winners with regards to underdog teams in this divisional round of the playoffs, and we have seen 3 favorites be able to persevere and get the job done as well. And with regards to the under rate, we've only seen now 3 of these 8 games go under, and 2 of them have been in that Tigers versus Seattle Mariners series. So that's what we saw in baseball on Sunday, and that's where we're all getting trend-wise. Coming up next, how about if we do take a look at the Monday games and what we're getting overall in this playoff landscape with Rob Donaldson right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. It's always great to be joined by this man as we've got Rob Donaldson aboard. He does such great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. I know that he is hard at work, much like myself, in terms of getting set for the upcoming college basketball season as well. He's a man that does very many things, and he does so also well. Does some great work on the football front as well. You're able to catch him on the old Twitter/X at RobDFB and over on YouTube.com/Rob Donaldson for the Rob's Best Bets show. And Rob, it is always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Greg. It's always a blast to talk some ball with you, especially when we got, ALDS action, NLDS action, and although the slates are much, much smaller than the regular season, there's still tons of value on the betting board each and every night, it kind of feels like.
Oh, yeah, just like if you took plus money with the Toronto Blue Jays on Sunday, there was tons of value there. And just what did you make out of the first 2 games of that Yankees versus Blue Jays series? Because I certainly thought that the Blue Jays were going to be able to pull out one of them, and I thought that the number got up too high on the New York Yankees in game number 2. I certainly did not see what we saw coming, though, which was a complete and utter bludgeoning by the Blue Jays in game number 2.
Yeah, and sometimes we worry about these teams that have that kind of bye game going into their first matchup in the division series because, hey, maybe the offense isn't going to be humming correctly. But obviously on Saturday, the Blue Jays hang 10. My goodness, man, the Blue Jays are just on fire right now offensively. And when you're trotting out Max Fried and a Max Fried start is resulting in 13 runs for the other team, I think right now the Yankees are pretty much dead in the water is kind of what it feels like.
Do you think that there might be a little bit of a pump for them in game number 3? Because they are most likely going to be throwing out there Carlos Rodon. It's going to be him going up against Shane Bieber, and I have yet to see an opener with regards to this one. I have to think that the Yankees are going to be a little bit of a favorite there, and I do think that that could be a little bit of a bounce back spot, and I think 2 things could be true. Yankees could be able to bounce back, win game 3, and I think that they're cooked overall for the series.
Yeah, and honestly with Carlos Rodon, he is kind of fool's gold at the moment because at the end of the regular season, in terms of runs allowed, it wasn't really like, oh, this guy's struggling right now. But in terms of hard hit numbers, my goodness, every single start, he was allowing a lot of ropes over the course of an entire month. And then obviously against the Red Sox in his first appearance, they left him in just 1 inning too far or 1/2 inning too much. And it ended up kind of costing the Yankees in a pretty significant way there. But when you are going up against a Blue Jays lineup that right now just has bats on left and right side hitting the cover off it, I don't trust Rodon to be kind of that stopper type in this type of game. Now, I don't trust Shane Bieber to handle the Yankees lineup exceptionally well either. And so if you want another game that's going to feature fireworks, I think the Yankees and the Blue Jays in that matchup could both do their own damage, and an over is actually definitely where I align myself.
Yeah, and what would you be willing to take that over on? Because we have yet to see the opener. I would have to think that it's probably going to be 7.5. Maybe you get an 8, but would like a 7.5 be a play for you on the over?
And it's going to be interesting to see what these kind of inflated Blue Jays numbers end up doing to the over-under in this series, but I would even take it above a flat 8 and go up to 8.5, because I really do think when you're looking at how the Blue Jays are humming, that's not fool's gold. And I do think the Yankees, if they're going to have any chance at sort of that, kind of comeback, bounce back type of spot, it's going to be offensively in that game. And so if there's definitely a 7.5 out there because of the names on the bump, you absolutely take that full game over. But if it is a flat 8 or even an 8.5, I still love the over in that type of spot as well.
Should be very interesting to see what we get there as Rob Donaldson, who does great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets. He's joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. Now, we don't know what we've got in terms of the final in Tigers versus Seattle Mariners. That was a very late game and have to have this up by midnight Pacific time. But how do you take a look at the dynamic of that series as well? Because for the Tigers, they actually opened up as like a minus 125 favorite against Seattle. That went up to in a lot of places like a minus 145, minus 150, and total went down to a hilarious 5.5, which that's a point where even when Tariq Skubal's on the bump, I can't take a 5.5 under. Like, boy, that was just a little bit too far. But that said, we know that Logan Gilbert is going to be going in game 3 for Seattle. And for Detroit, I would have to think that you're probably trotting out there someone like a Casey Mize. We will see what that's going to be, but I think that that's going to be an interesting game number 3 because with Seattle, their offense always gets elevated when they're away from home, but their pitchers always have some very dramatic home and road splits, and Logan Gilbert has been one of those guys.
Yeah, and I think the tenor of this Tigers-Mariners series is going to be lived in the under department. Maybe not the 5.5 unders game by game, but my goodness, at the same time, that Mariners bullpen is loaded with weapons, and AJ Hinch, in terms of utilization of his bullpen outside of, the Tariq Skubal starts, where I think when Tariq is on the bump, they're just going to let him roll because that's like, you can't do better than that by just playing the matchups. And so outside of the Tariq Skubal starts, the Tigers do have some unique arms in terms of lefties and righties. I don't think a lot of them are like exceptional, like I would kind of label the Mariners bullpen as being, but at the same time, there are some guys that can get it done in that pen. And ultimately, both offenses have been very, very volatile over even the past 2 months, even going back to when the trade deadline, supposedly brought in consistent offense for the Mariners. It hadn't really resulted that in the back half of the season. So I think when you're looking at this series and potentially some colder weather fronts kind of move about Detroit and Seattle, all of a sudden, I think you have a really good series that's going to cater to a lot of unders and cater towards the dog if you can get that plus 1.5 on the run line.
Yep, and the Seattle Mariners, one of the highest strikeout teams in all of baseball as well. So I think that that's going to be able to help things out to your point as well. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this series because right now it's looking like the Blue Jays are on a fast path to the World Series unless they lose 3 straight games. Who do you think would fare better against the Blue Jays, the Tigers or the Mariners?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think if the Mariners kind of live up to what their optimistic potential is of a lineup that can do a little bit of damage and a bullpen and a starting rotation that can shut down nearly any lineup, then I would 100% say the Mariners. But again, they've just been so volatile along with the Tigers that it almost kind of feels like these are 2 very similar teams cut from the same type of cloth. And the Blue Jays, if they continue to play like they're playing right now, where they're tossing out you Savage and he's throwing no-nos through 5 innings, I just don't know if there's a better team right now in the AL equipped to even handle that, let alone maybe the entire landscape of the playoff cycle here.
I will say, I do think that we are seeing a World Series preview in terms of one of the matchups in the National League, as Rob Donaldson, who does great work with the show/podcast Rob's Best Bets, he's joining me on the Baseball Betting Show. That'd be the Dodgers and the Phillies. Whoever wins this game, I think needs to be the head and shoulders favorite to be able to win the World Series. And I think that's going to be interesting to see what we get in game 2 between Blake Snell and Jesus Luzardo, because for the Dodgers, they were able to storm back against the Philadelphia Phillies in game number 1 where all looked to be lost. But for the LA Dodgers, I think the big key for them is the way that they've utilized Roki Sasaki and Tyler Glasnow in the bullpen to really be a deodorant to what was the biggest form of stink that they had on their team, and perhaps the only form of stink that they had on their team.
Yeah, and when you got Glasnow and Roki Sasaki, these guys who are obviously, elite talents at certain things that they do, and all of a sudden now you have to face them in 2.
They've got like $1 billion bullpen now.
It's insane. And I mean, hey, if it wins you a World Series, it doesn't need to be the traditional prettiness of it, of a guy going out there and shoving 9. But yeah, to your point, like that Dodgers game on Saturday, I think really encapsulated why the Dodgers are such a difficult team, because you have a guy like a Teoscar Hernandez sitting in the 5 spot or the 4 spot or the 6 spot, and he's hitting 3-run bombs off your best reliever that comes in the game. It's just one of those things where every single inning is a new game for the Dodgers because they can hang 5 in a 1 inning or half inning frame. And yeah, to your point, I do think whoever comes out of that Dodgers Phillies series is going to be a very deserving team. And I do at this point kind of tend to think it is going to be the Dodgers. That's just a logic play based on them already having a leg up in the series. But ultimately, I think it's going to be kind of a collision course here between the Blue Jays and whoever comes out of there. And I think it's going to be a fun World Series matchup if that actually ends up coming to fruition.
Oh, it certainly is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm very excited to see what is going to be happening on that front. So we've got ourselves a great matchup there, and I think that game two between the Brewers and the Cubs is going to be fascinating as well. As Aaron Ashby is going to be the opener for the Brewers, you have to think that he is probably going to be making way for Quinn Priester. That sounds like going against Shota Imanaga, and I know that both of us have been in lockstep, not necessarily feeling the world's greatest about Shota Imanaga. And for the Cubs, they looked a little bit better in the final 7 innings against the Brewers, but when you get down 9-0, you know what? All is pretty much lost there, and I want to get your thoughts on this game and the overall series because it does feel like the Brewers were really able to just suck the life out of the Chicago Cubs, and I do not trust Shota Imanaga here in game number 2.
Yeah, and to that point, though, when you are looking at Quinn Priester on the other side, that's maybe not necessarily a guy that I'm overly bullish on backing as well. At the depending on kind of where that number closes, if there's more details that come out throughout the night here, but ultimately, to your point of not trusting Shota Imanaga, me really not trusting this setup that the Brewers are kind of laying out here as well, and it also being a weather-controlled environment. Once again, put my tinfoil hat on, Greg. Sometimes I feel like the Brewers' home stadium advantage ends up actually playing a little bit of a detriment because it does give the other opposing offense a little bit of life when you don't have a Corbin Burns or a guy who can go out there and shove like a Freddie Peralta on the bump on the other side. So I think actually the first 5 or even the full game over is where I'm going to align myself. And I get it, unders are the thing in the playoff, but look at what's happening in the Blue Jays game, or Blue Jays series versus the Yankees. Look what's happening in game 1 of the Cubs Brewers. I think another game here is going to be going way over the total, in my opinion.
And it is going to be interesting to see what happens in this series because I do think that the Brewers have the leg up. Being able to take game number 1, that was massive for them. But I also think it's going to be really interesting as well to see how these teams would fare against either the Phillies or the Dodgers. Obviously, the Dodgers now have the leg up there because I think whoever advances in this series, they're just going to be unable to get the job done against either the Phillies or the Dodgers. And at this point, especially the Dodgers, in my opinion.
Yeah, and especially if the Dodgers are humming offensively the way that they are, because kind of in a weird fashion, it was the offense that failed them during a lot of stretches during the regular season. But if all of a sudden they are hitting those 2 and 3 run clump bombs every other inning or once every 3 innings, all of a sudden you can't keep up if you're a team like the Brewers or a team like the Cubs that haven't shown that consistent offense over the course of an entire season. And I do think the World Series is being determined in that Dodgers-Phillies series and the Cubs hits, but yeah, that's kind of the landscape that I see on the NL side.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and I do think that we've got ourselves a lot of fun to be taking a look at, and obviously it's a relatively thin slate on Monday with just the 2 games, but has there been anything that you've been taking a look at a little bit differently this postseason instead of past postseasons? Because I know that you've been talking quite a bit about the overs, and we saw an underwhelming wild card. We've been seeing an overwhelming divisional round right now. Anything that you've been playing with regards maybe player props, futures, or have you just been sticking to game and what has typically been tried and true for you in the postseason?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing right now is game to game, because with analytics being involved with bullpen usage, arm fatigue is real. And with these starters kind of getting ramped up for shorter rest periods, I think we're going to see analytics take over where, yeah, you see Blake Snell's name on the bump. Yeah, you see Shota Imanaga's name on the bump, but do they go that 5 or 6 innings? I highly doubt it. I think there's going to be a little bit of a rain, a little bit of a kind of a play-by-play if, let's just say, theoretically speaking, the AL side, you're going up against the Tariq Skubal. Yeah, maybe you don't want to burn your best starting pitcher, your ace against that type of guy because it's going to be shut down versus shut down. And I think there's individual strategies that every game kind of takes fold on. And if you are playing that long game of, oh, let me just predict how all the usage during this series is going to go, I think you're going to get punched in the mouth. So, yeah, I've definitely been taking these games individually just as they come.
Yep, I totally agree with you there. I always am a game-to-game better myself, so this postseason has been great for me, and what is always great is being able to get you on this fine podcast. As Rob, I know you're hard at work taking a look at so many different things. You're doing such an amazing job on the baseball front, but getting set for college basketball, doing a great job with football, and so much more. So let the good people at home know what's on tap for you and how people are able to follow along on social media and other platforms.
Well, hey, Greg, it's always a blast, my man. And for those who want to follow my Major League Baseball bets, college football, NFL, all the in between, you can do so on Twitter/X X at RobDFB, and also on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Rob Donaldson. But as always, Greg, I appreciate having me on, my man.
It is always great to be able to get Rob aboard every single time he joins me. He lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So a big thanks to Rob for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Coming next, only 2 games on the board for this Baseball Monday, but I'm going to get you guys picks and analysis on both of them as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Rob Donaldson. He does such great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets. Taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So, big thanks to Rob for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis for both games on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_D1. The rotation order actually has us out of time order. We'll go Cubs versus Brewers first, and then Dodgers versus Phillies. So, how about if we do start with 9:45, 9:46, the Brewers do playoffs to the Cubs, as Shota Imanaga gets the start for the Cubs. Aaron Ashby goes for the Brewers. The Brewers are between -117 to -125 favorites. Even money to +109 is that number on the Cubs with a total of 8. Unders anywhere between -115 to a -110. Overs between -105 to a -110. And I'm going to be willing to roll with the Brewers in this one. For the Brewers, I did set their money line price at a -136. I fully expect Aaron Ashby to be an opener here. He has not won more than 3 2/3 innings in any of his appearances this year. Now he's been rock solid at 2.17 ERA. He's got some relatively good strikeout stuff, but all expectations is that Quinn Priester is going to be the bulk guy. And for Quinn Priester, it's been a case where he hasn't gotten a lot of strikeouts after strikeouts per 9 innings, but it's just been highly effective. 3.32 ERA. Now he does have a 4.01 fielding independent, but for Quinn Priester, he's been able to do a very rock-solid job of just being able to hold things out in front of him, only giving up about a home run per 9 innings, so he's not giving up a lot of hard contact. Actually has a 3.82 home ERA compared to a road ERA of a 2.91, and it just feels like the Brewers have been able to win every single time he's been on the mound. They did lose his last appearance when he was going against the Cincinnati Reds, but it was just this remarkable feat that they were on. I think that the last time they had lost prior to that was on May 30th. It was a run of, I think, like 19 appearances that they had won every one of them. Now, I don't make too much out of that, but you do have Shota Imanaga on the flip side that he's got essentially the same strikeout stuff as Quinn Priester. He's been able to get 7.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. To his credit for Imanaga, 1.6 walks per 9 innings, but overall for the season, he's giving up 1.9 home runs per 9 innings, so that's a big giant concern. Cubs actually utilized an opener for him the last time he went out there against the San Diego Padres. He gave up 2 runs over the course of 4 innings. Wasn't anything great, wasn't anything terrible, but now it does go up against a Brewers team that's averaging 5.4 runs per game ever since the All-Star break. That is number 1 in the National League. Blue Jays, with everything that they did yesterday, I think overtook them for the overall league lead, but for the Brewers, you just have a lot of guys that find a way to move the line and get on base. Now, Jackson Trio dealing with a little bit of injury, might be out of the lineup for this one, but you have the likes of William Contreras, Sal Frelick, Christian Yelich, Andrew Vaughn in a Brewers uniform and a Brewers uniform only, Isaac Collins, who have all been able to give you at least a 335 on base this season, Caleb Durbin as well, with Yelich now being the lone guy if you don't have Gurriel out there with 20 plus home runs this season. So you've got a Brewers team that they find a way to move the line, and even if you don't necessarily get the world's greatest bulk appearance from Quinn Priester, likes of Jared Koenig, Abner Uribe, Nick Mears, Trevor McGill, a lot of guys give you a sub-35 ERA. And for the Cubs, they did not utilize a lot of their trustworthy bullpen pieces in game number 1. Now, they had the day off on Sunday anyway, so it wasn't going to matter too much, but still, you're going to have all those guys that you know and love, like Brad Keller, Caleb Theobar, Daniel Palencia, be able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Good to go in this one. And for the Cubs, ever since the All-Star break, they're averaging about 4.1 runs per game. Michael Busch, 30-plus home runs. He's been rock solid here in the playoffs. He's already got a pair of home runs to his credit. Ian Happ has had a home run here in the postseason, but has not been hitting for a lot of average. Nico Horner, post-All-Star break, hitting above a 300, but we've seen struggles from someone like a Kyle Tucker, who ever since coming off the injured list hasn't done a great job of moving the line. Pico Armstrong, Seiya Suzuki have looked better over the last 2 weeks, but post-All-Star break, these guys have not necessarily been great either, and I do think that for the Brewers, they do find a way to get the job done here, and I do think that the Brewers hold down a Cubs lineup that has been relatively struggling. Semi-total 7.8, like the under and the Brewers on the money line up to a minus 135, and then 947, 948. Dodgers are on the road against the Philadelphia Phillies. Jesus Luzardo is on the bump for the Phils. Blake Snell is on the bump for the Dodgers. The Dodgers, a mid-sized favorite here, minus 123 to a minus 132, and we're between plus 110 to a plus 115 is that number on the Phillies with a total of 7.5. Under is minus 120. The over is even. I'm going to be going in on the over. I did set my total at a 7.6. You do have a lineup in the Phillies that has just been so rock solid when they've been at home. Getting back Trey Turner down for what? Who's been able to hit for a 300 this season. That's very big, as well as for the Philadelphia Phillies. They're averaging about 5.3 runs per game at home this season. That is number 2 out there in the National League. You've had, obviously, Kyle Schwarber give you all the Schwarber bombs, over 50 home runs, a 350 on base. Really, nobody else other than Bryce Harper with 20-plus home runs on this roster for Harper. He's done a nice job move line, hitting for about a 375 on base, being able to get back Alec Boehm off of injuries, hitting above a 275 is big as well. You've had Nick Castellanos on as he give you the season that you prefer out of him in terms of an on-base percentage, but still has quite a bit of pop in the bat, and both of these teams during the regular season did have a 4.27 ERA in their bullpen. I will say for the Dodgers, they very much have been able to revamp that bullpen with Roki Sasaki coming out of the bullpen. Tyler Glasnow looked very effective in game number 1, so this is a completely different bullpen than when you had out there like Kirby Yates, Tanner Scott, who are posting up above a 4 ERA and just frankly have not been too effective this season. And for Blake Snell, overall for the regular season at 2.35 ERA, if you include the postseason, pretty much sitting right there because he gave up 2 runs in 7 innings in his start against the Cincinnati Reds, but he's been able to mow them down over 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. The walks are a little bit of an issue. He always gives up over 3.5 walks per 9 innings. He might knock himself out of this start a little bit early, and for the Dodgers, this continues to be a top 3 team in terms of their offense. Teoscar Hernandez already has 3 home runs here in the postseason, and Shohei Ohtani, if you combine the regular season and the postseason, he's up to 55 bombs, give you over a 380 on base, and Max Muncy is just such a big key for this offense as well. If you compare the Dodgers with/without Max Muncy, it's about a full run and a half per game difference. Mookie Betts since the All-Star break has been hitting above a 275, so got some rock solid pieces there. But for the Philadelphia Phillies, I actually do believe that after their bullpen was not so great in game number 1, they are going to be able to bounce back here as you take a look at what they've got with Yohan Duran as one of the more dominant closers in all of baseball. Orion Kerkering, Matt Strahm, these 2 guys were able to, during the regular season, give you a sub-345 ERA, so they're going to be solid there. They've got some mix and match guys that they can utilize in terms of long relief as well, and I do think that for Jesus Luzardo, he's been better than what his ERA would indicate. For Luzardo, his fielding independent is starting a point lower than his ERA as he's getting 10.6 strikeouts, 0.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings, but a 3.92 ERA compared to a 2.90 fielding independent, 2 runs for fewer allowed in 3 out of his last 5 starts. I don't think that these offenses are going to be denied. I did set my total 7.6, so here at the 7.5, I like the over, but for the Phillies, plus 112 or better, I'm going to be in on that money line, and that'll wrap things up for the Monday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. Big thanks to Rob Donaldson, does great work with the show/podcast Rob's Best Bets. He joined me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, RCM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. I am coming at you guys every single day on this podcast, regular season and all the way through the postseason. Might take a day or 2 off when we've got that lull between the Championship Series and the World Series, but every day that we've got games, I'm with you guys, so I'll be back if you want to get them out. Thank you.